Jordan Pierce first felt her lungs tighten when the 4 words appeared on her phone screen, sharp enough to punch the air out of her chest. "Don't come to the wedding." She stared at the message, still holding the crinkled receipt for the latest payment she'd made toward her sister's ceremony. One more piece of the $100,000 she had quietly poured into Ariana's dream day. The ballroom, the imported flowers, the 12-piece band, the photographer Ariana insisted on, the gold-rimmed place settings. Every detail existed because Jordan had been the one to pay for it, coordinate it, carry it. She reread the text, waiting for a second message, a clarifying joke, an explanation that softened the blow. Nothing came. The apartment around her hummed with a low Seattle rain tapping the balcony railings, and her reflection in the dark window looked strangely still, as if even her breath had paused. But the text itself wasn't what broke her. It was what came afterward. The tone in her mother Monica's voice, the silence from the wedding planner, and the discovery Jordan found buried deep inside the digital contracts she'd signed months earlier. That discovery didn't just sting. It ignited something she didn't know she possessed. Later, when she acted on it, when she used the authority no one had expected her to use, not a single person in her family saw it coming. Not Ariana. Not Monica. Not Elias's mother, Ivonne. And certainly not Elias himself. In that moment, Jordan felt her life tilt, not from anger, but from clarity. The kind of clarity that arrives only when the people you've spent your whole life protecting finally reveal exactly how little they think you matter. Jordan had spent most of her life being the person everyone trusted to handle things, though no one ever asked whether she wanted the role. It had been assigned to her the same way chores were assigned to a kid who didn't talk back. Growing up in Spokane, she learned early that calmness wasn't a personality trait. It was a requirement in the Pierce household. Her mother, Monica, would boast to neighbors, "Jordan's the steady one. She never needs checking on." Meanwhile, Ariana, 2 years younger, delicate, easily overwhelmed, was treated like a glass ornament no one wanted to crack. Whenever Ariana cried over a lost friendship, a bad grade, or a dropped ice cream, Monica was there with blankets, soothing words, and immediate solutions. While those comforting rituals played out, Jordan walked herself to school, signed her own field trip slips, and made instant noodles after class because Monica was driving Ariana to yet another art lesson she would quit in 3 weeks. Jordan built resilience because no one offered alternatives. And her father, Dennis, though loving in his quiet way, backed every decision Monica made by simply not interfering. Silence was his language for "don't ask me to pick sides." By adulthood, Jordan understood the division clearly. Ariana lived in a world where help would arrive before she even asked for it, while Jordan lived in a world where needing anything was framed as an inconvenience. So when Ariana got engaged to Elias Brooks, charming, polished, perfect on paper Elias, it didn't surprise Jordan at all that the first phone call Monica made that night wasn't to congratulate her older daughter. It was to assign her the next task. "Jordan, sweetheart," Monica had said, breathless with excitement, "Ariana's dream wedding is happening. She needs something beautiful. And you're so good at managing things." Jordan should have known then. The next 6 months would not belong to her. What followed was a 6-month blur of invoices, deposits, emails, mood boards, and late-night vendor calls made from Jordan's Seattle apartment as she stared at spreadsheets under warm kitchen lights. She coordinated with Chantel Rivers, the planner who recommended upgrades with the enthusiasm of someone spending other people's money. Jordan funded the dress deposit, wired payments for the custom veil, and covered Ariana's chosen imported flowers. Rare blooms flown from Italy that Ariana insisted she had always imagined holding. Every time Jordan transferred another 4-figure payment, she reminded herself this was for her sister's happiness, that maybe this time her contribution would be seen and valued. Every phone call from Ariana had been filled with breathless gratitude, soft excitement, and frantic joy. "Jordan, look at this ballroom. It's perfect. This is the dream," Ariana whispered once, sending Jordan a shaky phone video of the chandelier-lit hall. Jordan watched it with a small smile, believing she had finally found something meaningful to give her sister. But the shift began subtly, so subtly that Jordan initially dismissed the signs as stress or coincidence. The planner forgot to CC her on calls. The florist started emailing Ariana directly for approval. The band coordinator asked Ariana about timeline changes Jordan hadn't heard of. Jordan tried brushing it off. People get busy, mix-ups happen. Yet each small shift pressed against her ribs like a soft warning. The warning sharpened after her video call with Ivonne Brooks, the groom's mother. Ivonne smiled politely but assessed Jordan with narrowed eyes, as if trying to decipher what role Jordan truly played. At one point she said, "We want the ceremony peaceful, simple, calm." She pressed on the word peaceful like it was a critique, not a preference. Jordan didn't understand the meaning then. Later it would become painfully clear. By the 5th month, Jordan noticed the shared planning folder hadn't been updated. The documents were still there, frozen in time, but any new decisions were happening out of sight. She emailed Chantel, once, twice, polite, concise messages asking for updated timelines. Chantel responded only once with an unsettling line. "We'll keep Ariana closely looped in." Closely looped in. As if Ariana had become the project manager overnight. As if Jordan, the one paying every bill, had somehow been demoted without explanation. Ariana's behavior shifted too. She went from excited voice messages about centerpiece options to vague, delayed replies. From sending color palettes to responding with, "Let me think about it," before disappearing for hours. Jordan called one afternoon to ask if Ariana needed help reviewing the seating chart, something Ariana had begged for previously. Ariana sighed and said, "Let me check with Mom," then hung up before Jordan could respond. It was small but it cracked something. Ariana had never asked Monica before making a decision with Jordan, not once in 6 months. But Jordan swallowed the doubt. She always did. Until the week before the wedding. Jordan was sitting at her kitchen table, scanning final payments, when Ariana's name appeared on her phone screen. Jordan smiled, expecting instructions or gratitude. Instead, she opened a message that didn't feel real. "Don't come to the wedding." 4 words. No explanation. No apology. No follow-up. Jordan reread it, waiting for more. When she called, Ariana didn't answer. When she texted, the typing bubbles appeared, vanished, appeared again, then disappeared entirely. 20 minutes later, Monica called. And the explanation she offered wasn't an explanation at all. It was a knife wrapped in softness. "Amanda," Monica began gently, a voice she used only when she needed something softened. "Don't take it personally." Jordan's jaw clenched. Why did Ariana text me that? Monica sighed, as if Jordan were being unreasonable. "Patricia, Elias's mother, just wants to avoid tension. You know how you can be too direct. Ariana wants the day to go smoothly." Jordan felt heat rising up her throat. "I paid for everything," she said quietly. Pause crackled on the line. "You're the strong one," Monica replied, with the same tired sentence she had used Jordan's whole life. "You understand." Jordan hung up mid-sentence. She sat alone in her kitchen, surrounded by printed invoices, floral orders, rental agreements, all signed by her. She didn't feel heartbreak or rage. She felt clarity, piercing, cold, steady. She opened the venue contract first, scanning the fine print she had skimmed months earlier. There it was, primary signer, Jordan Pierce. Full cancellation rights belong exclusively to the signer. Her breath stilled. She opened the catering agreement. The florist contract. The band, the decor team, the transportation service. Every one of them listed one person with legal authority. Not Ariana. Not Monica. Not Patricia. Only Jordan. Her pulse finally quickened. Not with fear but awakening. At 12:47 a.m., she opened her laptop and began typing. "Hello Kimberly. As the signer on this event, I am formally requesting cancellation effective immediately." She hovered for only a second. Then she hit send. And once she sent the first, the rest came easily. To the florist. A band. Catering. Transportation. Every vendor responded the same way. Received. Understood. We will proceed according to policy. They didn't ask for reasons. They didn't question her. Because they didn't need to. She wasn't asking. She was exercising power none of them thought she had. Power she hadn't realized she still possessed until they pushed her out of the very wedding she built. By 3 a.m., Jordan had become a machine of precision, moving from contract to contract with a calm efficiency that would have terrified anyone who believed she was incapable of drawing boundaries. She called the catering company first. Their manager, Marcus Delroy, answered with a groggy voice. Ms. Pierce. Everything okay? Jordan didn't mask her steadiness. I'm canceling the event. As the signer, I'm invoking my rights under the contract. Please process the cancellation immediately. Marcus exhaled slowly, not shocked. I figured something like this might happen, he murmured. We'll take care of it. The florist was next. Then the band. Then transportation. Each conversation unfolded the same way. Short, professional, controlled. No emotion. No justification. No hesitation. Vendors who had spoken to her for months with honey-soaked customer service tones now addressed her with crisp professionalism, recognizing authority when it finally stepped into its name. By 3:30 a.m., Jordan's inbox was a wall of confirmations. Refund processing initiated. Contracts closed. Services nullified. The machine she'd built over 6 months had dismantled itself in 3 hours. She closed her laptop as dawn cracked over Seattle, pale silver light bleeding into her kitchen. Instead of regret, she felt an unfamiliar weight lifting off her ribcage. They wanted her gone from the wedding. Fine. She wasn't going. She was taking the wedding with her. She stretched her arms overhead, joints popping softly in the quiet, and poured herself a fresh cup of coffee. For the first time in years, her hands didn't shake. For the first time in decades, she wasn't the one scrambling to keep everyone else upright. The morning sky brightened, soft and steady. Outside, a new day unfolded. Inside, Jordan finally felt like she had entered her own life. The morning after the cancellations, Jordan's phone lit up with so many missed calls it looked like the screen was glitching. Monica. Ariana. Unknown numbers. Voicemails stacked like falling dominoes. She didn't listen to a single one. Instead, she cracked 2 eggs into a pan, toasted bread, brewed her black coffee, and let the world unravel without her participation. At 12:14 p.m., the first real strike arrived. A message from Kimberly Shaw, the venue coordinator. Lily and her family arrived requesting the booking be restored. We informed them the signer must authorize changes. Jordan pictured it perfectly. Monica's polite smile cracking at the edges, Ariana's breath hitching, Patricia trying to intimidate a venue assistant with icy phrases about expectations. Another message followed minutes later. They are upset. We are following policy. Jordan set the phone down, took a slow sip of coffee, and continued eating. By 3 p.m., the tone of the messages flooding her phone had shifted from confusion to panic. Amanda, call me now. Jordan, why would you sabotage the wedding? What is wrong with you? This is humiliating. Fix this. You're acting unstable. Unstable. The word they always used when they wanted to bury their guilt under her steadiness. Jordan didn't respond. Instead, she opened her laptop and created a folder titled Records. Inside it, she placed everything. Every invoice, every email, every contract confirming her legal authority. Evidence, not conversation. Later that night, as the sky dimmed into a cool violet, the doorbell rang. Jordan froze. No one visited her unannounced. Ever. She checked the peephole. Ariana. Hair disheveled, mascara smudged, sweater stretched. She wasn't crying yet, but she looked like she was standing on the edge of a breakdown. Jordan opened the door. Ariana exhaled a ragged breath. Please, just let me in. Ariana sat on the very edge of Jordan's couch, clutching her phone like it was the only thing keeping her from collapsing completely. Her leg bounced nervously, eyes flicking from wall to wall as if searching for a script. Why did you do this? She whispered. Jordan remained standing, arms folded loosely, voice steady. You told me not to come. Ariana blinked rapidly. It wasn't meant literally. Texts are literal, Jordan replied. Ariana looked down, fingers twisting the hem of her sweater. I was stressed. Patricia said things might be calmer if you weren't there. She thinks you're too intense. A small laugh slipped from Jordan before she could stop it. Intense, she echoed. Patricia hasn't seen intense. Ariana flinched. I didn't think you'd react like this. How did you think I'd react? Jordan asked. After I paid for everything. Ariana bit her lip. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Jordan had been predictable her entire life. Quiet, compliant, the dependable older sister who absorbed impact without breaking. Finally, Ariana murmured. Mom said you wouldn't mind. That you're strong enough to understand. There it was again, the sentence that excused every wound they'd ever dealt her. Jordan inhaled slowly. I cancelled because I was the signer, she said. Because you removed me from the wedding I funded. Because you expected my labor and my money while refusing my presence. Ariana's chin quivered. We need the wedding back. The venue said nothing can move forward without you. They made us wait in the lobby like we were intruding. Jordan nodded once. You were. Ariana's voice cracked. Amanda, please. Just sign it again. Please put it back. Jordan's silence wrapped around the room like cold air. You wanted me gone, she said softly. Now you need me back because you want what I provide, not who I am. Ariana's tears finally spilled over. 3 sharp doorbell rings cut through the thick silence. Ariana flinched so hard she nearly dropped her phone. Jordan opened the door, unsurprised by who stood there. Monica, her face tight with a mix of indignation and desperation, and behind her, Ivonne Brooks, rigid with practiced composure. Monica pushed inside without waiting. Jordan Marie Pierce, she snapped. What is the meaning of this? Jordan closed the door calmly. The meaning of what? Canceling the wedding. Monica waved an accusing hand as though pointing at a crime scene. You're embarrassing us. Jordan's expression didn't shift. You erased me first. Monica scoffed. We did what we had to do to keep things peaceful. You broke the peace, Jordan replied. You removed me from the wedding I built. Patricia stepped forward, voice clipped. We needed a harmonious environment. You complicate things. Jordan stared her down. This is me calm. Completely calm. Patricia's jaw tightened. Your behavior proves our concern. Jordan almost smiled. My behavior? Sending polite cancellation emails. Meanwhile, you've been telling people I'm having a breakdown. Patricia looked away. Monica didn't. Monica crossed her arms tightly. Fix this, Jordan. No, Ariana's voice cracked. Please. The venue said you're the only one who can authorize the reinstatement. They told us to ask you. Jordan tilted her head. Then ask. Ariana swallowed. Please, Amanda. Please sign it. Please put it back. No, Jordan repeated. Ariana dropped onto the couch, shaking. Monica gasped. Why? Why are you doing this? Jordan spoke with a softness that cut deeper than anger. I'm not doing anything to you. I'm doing something for myself. And then she delivered the line that changed the room's temperature. You removed me from your wedding. So I removed your wedding from my name. Silence detonated in the space. None of them recovered from it. Monica's breath hitched. Patricia's posture crumbled for the first time. Ariana covered her mouth with trembling hands, eyes wide and shattered. Jordan stepped back, giving them space. Not out of mercy but closure. Please leave, she said quietly. They stared at her, waiting for the familiar softening, for the surrender she'd been trained to offer. It didn't come. Eventually, they filed out, stunned and disoriented, each of them scrambling for a new narrative that made them victims instead of architects of their own downfall. When the door clicked shut, Jordan exhaled, not in triumph but release. A life finally returned to its rightful owner. The following days unfolded with a strange blend of chaos and peace. The world surrounding the cancelled wedding spun louder with every hour, Angry calls, frantic emails, panicked messages, but Jordan's inner world grew still. Vendors sent confirmations of refunds and account closures. Every line affirmed the same truth. She had acted within her rights. No breakdown. No drama. Just clarity. Her mother's calls shifted from fury to confusion, then to pleading. Jordan ignored them all. She began therapy again, returning to Dr. Marlene's soft-lit office with its scented candles and warm blankets. For the first time, Jordan didn't talk about Ariana or Monica. She talked about herself. She joined a Women in Tech mentorship circle. She learned to say no without apology. She learned to ask for what she deserved without shrinking. Weeks passed, and one quiet Sunday morning, as she walked along Lake Union with coffee warming her hands, she realized something profound. Her life finally felt like hers. Not borrowed. Not demanded. Not shaped around someone else's emergencies. Hers. When Ariana eventually sent her a letter, not asking for money or reinstatement, but acknowledging harm, Jordan didn't rush to respond. Healing took time. And for the first time, time belonged to her. In the week that followed the implosion, Jordan noticed something she had never experienced before. The absence of urgency. Her phone, once a device vibrating non-stop with other people's expectations, now served only as a clock and occasional playlist. She kept it on silent, not out of spite but self-preservation. The noise had always come from them, not her. With the chaos muted, Seattle felt different. Softer. As she walked into work on Monday morning, she noticed she wasn't holding her shoulders as tightly as usual. Her co-workers, unaware of the storm she had survived, greeted her with casual smiles and harmless conversation. Jordan answered easily, amazed at how light her voice sounded. At lunch, she sat outside with a warm jacket draped across her legs and observed people. Parents pushing strollers, couples arguing about groceries, joggers dodging puddles. Ordinary life. Life that had never belonged to her because she had been too busy holding up someone else's. When she opened her laptop that afternoon, she didn't see invoices or wedding files. Instead, she opened a blank document titled New Chapter, but she didn't write anything. She didn't need to. The title alone was enough. That evening, she returned home to find a thick envelope in her mailbox. Refund checks from the florist and the band. Attached was a handwritten note from the florist. I hope you're doing okay. These things happen more than people think. Jordan smiled at the unexpected kindness. She placed the envelope on her dining table, beside a vase of grocery store daisies she'd bought for herself. She hadn't realized how rare it was to receive something without strings. As night fell, she curled beneath her blanket and realized a truth that startled her. She did not miss them. Not the calls. Not the pressure. Not the role she had once played. She missed only herself, someone she was finally beginning to meet. On Wednesday, Jordan attended her first Women in Tech mentorship meeting at a small co-working space near Pike Place Market. The room buzzed with soft chatter, women comparing promotion experiences, job frustrations, burnout stories. Jordan chose a seat near the back, unsure whether she belonged. But when the facilitator, a woman named Layla with bright eyes and a voice full of calm authority, asked everyone to introduce themselves and share one boundary they were learning to set, Jordan surprised herself by speaking without hesitation. I'm Jordan, she said, hands folded neatly in her lap. I'm learning not to mistake being responsible for being available. The room went quiet for a heartbeat. Then several women nodded with the kind of recognition that feels like honesty becoming oxygen. After the session, a woman named Brianna approached her. What you said, that hit, she said. I've spent years confusing helpfulness with self-sacrifice. Jordan smiled awkwardly, unused to being understood without explanation. They exchanged numbers, promising to join the next Wednesday session. When Jordan left the building, the street felt alive. Tourists with cameras, buskers playing guitar, the scent of baked bread drifting through the air. For the first time, Jordan walked without rushing. Later that night, she journaled for the first time in months, writing about expectations, silence, and the strange peace of not holding everything together. She wrote about Ariana too, about love complicated by imbalance, about patterns mistaken for loyalty. She didn't write with anger. She wrote with clarity, the kind that comes only after a long-awaited exhale. When she closed the journal, she felt her heartbeat steadying in a way she hadn't felt since childhood. Boundaries, she realized, weren't walls. They were doors. And she was finally learning which ones to lock, which to open, and which to walk away from entirely. 2 days later, Jordan received an email from her therapist, Dr. Marlene, confirming a session for Friday afternoon. The familiar warmth of that office, the wall of soft-toned paintings, the gentle tick of the analog clock, felt like a place Jordan needed. When she arrived, Dr. Marlene greeted her with her usual steady smile. "It's been a while," she said, gesturing for Jordan to take her seat. Jordan exhaled slowly as she sat down. A lot happened. Dr. Marlene waited, not pushing, allowing the silence to land gently. So Jordan told her everything, not in the spiraling voice she once used when trying to justify pain, but with a grounded steadiness that reflected how deeply she had changed. "They told me not to come to the wedding," she said simply. "After I paid for all of it. After I planned all of it. How did that make you feel?" Dr. Marlene asked. Jordan thought about it. Invisible. Disposable. And then, powerful. Not revenge powerful. Just aware of myself for the first time. Dr. Marlene nodded. Awareness is a shift. A turning point. Jordan swallowed. "I thought canceling everything would destroy me. But it didn't. I slept better after that night than I have in years." "That's because you acted from self-protection, not spite," Dr. Marlene said. "You finally chose yourself." The words hit Jordan like warm light. She realized how deeply she had been waiting for permission to do exactly that. They talked for nearly an hour, about patterns, roles, generational expectations, and the exhaustion of being the reliable one in a family that used reliability like currency. When she left the building, her steps felt lighter, her thoughts clearer. For the first time in her adult life, she wasn't trying to earn her family's acceptance. She was trying to earn her own. Saturday morning arrived with a stillness Jordan hadn't felt in decades. She opened her curtains to find soft sunlight warming her hardwood floors, dust drifting lazily in the beams like tiny suspended stars. With a full mug of black coffee, she sat at her small kitchen table, quiet, steady, unbothered, and began sorting through the last of the vendor refund confirmations. Each email was a quiet affirmation. Your decision mattered. Your decision held weight. Your decision was yours. When she closed her laptop, she didn't feel guilt. She felt autonomy. Around noon, she walked to the lake trail again, her sneakers tapping lightly against the pavement. A pair of paddleboarders drifted by, laughing as the wind pushed them off course. Jordan paused, watching them move with the ease of people unburdened by expectation. She sat on a bench overlooking the water, breathing in its cold, clean scent. Her phone buzzed, an unknown number again. She didn't check. If it was Ariana, she wasn't ready. If it was Monica, she had nothing left to offer. She opened a book instead, letting the breeze flip the pages for her. For once, time didn't feel like something she owed anyone. Felt like something she finally owned. Later that evening, she cooked herself dinner, plating it with care. Not for a guest, not for approval, but because she deserved things that felt good. While she washed dishes, she caught her reflection in the darkened window. She didn't look hardened or angry. She looked composed, present. Someone standing in her own life, not trapped under someone else's. She dried her hands and whispered softly, "I'm still here." It wasn't a declaration. It was a reminder, to herself, to the version of her that had once shrunk to fit everyone else's needs. That version was gone. And she didn't miss her. The following week, as Jordan settled deeper into her new rhythm, a letter arrived. Handwritten, slightly smudged, clearly emotional. It was from Ariana. Jordan held it for a long moment before opening it, bracing herself for guilt, manipulation, or excuses. But the first line startled her. "I'm not asking for anything. I just want to explain what I couldn't say before." Ariana's handwriting trembled across the page. She wrote about pressure from Elias's family, about Monica's influence, about her own fear of being seen as incapable. I let people speak for me. I let them decide what was best. And I let them use you because it was easier than saying no. There was not accountability, not yet, but recognition. Doorway, not a repair. Ariana ended the letter with something Jordan had never heard from her sister in their entire lives. I'm sorry. Hurt you. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed to say it. Jordan folded the letter carefully, placing it inside a drawer. Not to hide it, but to keep it safe while she decided what the next chapter required. She didn't feel ready to respond. Healing wasn't linear. And Ariana's apology didn't erase the years that preceded it. But for once, the decision belonged entirely to Jordan. That night, as she sat on her balcony watching the city pulse beneath the setting sun, she realized something profound. Boundaries weren't punishments. They were invitations. To peace, to clarity, to self-respect. And when she closed her eyes, letting the cool air brush against her cheeks, she whispered the truth she now lived by. Some doors don't close out of anger. They close so peace has somewhere to stay. Jordan finally understood. Silence wasn't abandonment. It was arrival. 2 weeks after the letter arrived, Jordan found herself slipping into a life that felt breathable. Not perfect, not neatly arranged, but hers. One Thursday evening after work, she stopped at a local art supply store on a whim. She hadn't painted since high school, but something about the smell of acrylics and blank canvases called to her. At home, she laid a small canvas on her kitchen island, dipped a brush into a pool of deep blue, and let her hand move without direction. The brush strokes felt clumsy at first, then strangely comforting. It wasn't about skill. It was about reclamation. As she painted, she thought about the years she had spent being the steady daughter, the emotional shock absorber, the reliable one who never dropped a single spinning plate even when they cut her fingers. She thought about how none of that steadiness had been reciprocated. Not once. But she also thought about the version of herself now emerging, the woman who took up space without apologizing, who canceled a wedding she funded because she was asked not to attend it, who was no longer willing to accept proximity as a substitute for respect. She paused mid-stroke, realizing that she had stopped bracing for the next crisis, the next demand, the next expectation. Her phone buzzed on the counter. A message from Brianna. You coming to mentorship tonight? Jordan smiled softly. On my way, she typed back. She washed her hands, grabbed her jacket, and locked the door behind her. Not checking twice, not second-guessing. The air outside felt cool and crisp, the kind that wakes a person from the inside out. As she walked toward the bus stop, Jordan realized she wasn't building a new life. She was finally stepping into the one that had been waiting for her all along. The mentorship circle had become a sanctuary. Soft lighting, mismatched chairs, women whose stories carried echoes of Jordan's own. That night's topic was emotional labor. Layla, the facilitator, began with a question. When did you realize you were doing more for others than they ever considered doing for you? The answers were raw. Women describing caregiving roles at 10 years old, managing households as teenagers, supporting parents who never learned to support themselves. When it was Jordan's turn, she hesitated only for a breath. I realized it, she said carefully. The moment my sister uninvited me from the wedding I built. The wedding I paid for. It wasn't the uninviting that woke me up. It was the certainty everyone had that I'd stay quiet about it. A low murmur of empathy moved around the circle. Jordan continued. I spent my whole life being the stable one because stability made me useful. But usefulness is not the same as love. Brianna wiped her eyes. You set a boundary none of us were brave enough to set, she whispered. Jordan shook her head. I didn't feel brave. I felt done. Layla leaned forward. Done is often where bravery begins. Jordan swallowed hard, surprised by the sting of tears. She wasn't sad. She was seen, maybe for the first time. After the session, Jordan lingered a moment in the hallway, absorbing the warmth of the space. She realized she didn't miss the Pierce family version of herself, the one wrapped around Ariana's needs like padding, the one absorbing every impact without complaint. She had thought stepping away from her family would feel like losing a limb. Instead, it felt like regaining circulation. As she stepped into the night, the moon hung low over Pike Place, and the city felt less like something happening around her and more like something happening with her. She breathed in deeply, letting the cool air fill all the places where obligation used to sit. The next morning, Jordan woke to rain tapping the windows, soft and rhythmic. She brewed coffee, wrapped herself in a blanket, and sat by the window to watch droplets race down the glass. She noticed an envelope slipped halfway under her door. No return name, just her address scrawled in a hurried hand. For a moment, tension rose in her shoulders. She picked it up carefully, expecting confrontation, a guilt-laced plea, or an attempt to rewrite history. Instead, she found a short note from Ivonne Brooks. "Jordan," it began, "I owe you an apology. I misjudged you." Her handwriting was elegant, practiced. "In my effort to create a peaceful wedding for my son, I accepted a narrative about you without questioning who wrote it. That was unfair. From what I understand, you carried more of that wedding than anyone else. I am sorry for the part one played in diminishing that." Jordan blinked, stunned. The next lines were softer. "Ariana is not the only one who needed to reflect. You did too. And finally, I hope you find peace. Truly." Jordan sat still for a long time after reading it, the words settling slowly like sediment in clear water. She didn't feel vindicated. She felt acknowledged. The apology didn't erase Yvonne's participation in the hurt, but it recognized Jordan as a human being, not a resource. She folded the note and placed it next to Ariana's letter. 2 apologies. One emotional, one formal. Neither required an immediate response. Jordan looked out at the rain again, her breath fogging the glass. She whispered, "This is what accountability looks like." For the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was asking for too much. She felt like she was receiving just enough. Over the next week, Jordan began tending to the small parts of her life she had long abandoned. She rearranged her living room furniture, not because it needed changing, but because she wanted to see the room differently. She bought a new lamp, a warm, amber glow kind that made her apartment feel softer at night. She even pulled out her old rice cooker and attempted a family recipe she used to love but had stopped making because she was always too busy fixing someone else's crisis. As she stirred the pot, a memory surfaced. Her mother once told her, "Don't make food complicated. Ariana gets overwhelmed." Even meals had been shaped around her sister's comfort. Jordan laughed softly at the thought, shaking her head. She added extra seasoning. Flavor wasn't the enemy. While the stew simmered, her phone buzzed. A message from Monica appeared on the screen, brief and strained. "I wish you'd talk to us." Jordan stared at the text, feeling none of the familiar guilt that used to tighten around her ribs. Instead, she typed a simple reply. "I'm not ready." She sent it without trembling. Minutes later, another message arrived. "We didn't realize how much pressure you were under." Jordan didn't respond. That realization, while true, was theirs to sit with, not hers to soothe. She spent the evening on her balcony, bowl in hand, watching the city lights flicker like waves across the skyline. Each window in each building held a story, a life, a person trying their best. For once, she felt connected to the world instead of burdened by it. She remembered something Dr. Marlene had said. "When you stop carrying what isn't yours, you finally have room to hold what is." Jordan took another bite of her stew, warm and comforting. She whispered, "I'm making room." On Sunday, Jordan spent the morning cleaning her apartment. Not frantically, the way she used to when Monica or Ariana were visiting, but slowly, intentionally, choosing what to keep and what to let go. In a drawer beneath her bed, she found a small stack of journals from her early 20s. She hadn't opened them in years. She flipped through the pages, reading entries filled with exhaustion disguised as gratitude. "Ariana needed me again today. Mom says I'm the only one who can calm her down. I don't want to disappoint them." The entries felt like echoes from a version of herself she barely recognized. a woman taught to measure her worth by how little she needed and how much she gave. She closed the journal, tracing the cover with her thumb. "You did the best you could," she whispered to her younger self. Instead of throwing them out, she placed them gently into a box labeled before. Later, she met Brianna for lunch at a small cafe by the waterfront. As they talked about career goals, mental health, and the freedom of boundaries, Jordan realized she was forming connections not built on obligation, but authenticity. After lunch, they lingered by the pier, letting the cold breeze brush against their faces. Brianna nudged her softly. "You ever think about doing something just for fun?" Jordan raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" "A vacation. Short one. Just you." The idea startled her. Not because it was impossible, but because it had never occurred to her. Her vacations had always been tied to her family's needs. Jordan laughed under her breath. "Maybe I will." As she walked home that evening, she felt something lighten in her chest. Possibility. Potential. Space she didn't have to shrink inside. For the first time, Jordan wasn't surviving her life. She was shaping it. The following Friday, Jordan took the afternoon off and wandered into a travel agency. Not because she needed help planning a trip, but because she wanted the experience of imagining one. Posters of beaches, forests, mountaintops, and faraway cities lined the walls. A travel agent named Clarissa welcomed her with an easy smile. "Looking for ideas?" she asked. "Just browsing," Jordan replied. But as she flipped through a glossy brochure featuring a quiet cabin in Mount Rainier National Park, something in her settled. A place with trees taller than buildings. A lake with water still enough to reflect the sky. A weekend without demands. "I think I want to go here," she said, surprising herself. Clarissa grinned. "Then let's make it happen." Within half an hour, Jordan had booked a 2-night stay. No family. No obligations. No emergency contact forms listing Monica's number at the top. When she left the agency, the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky a warm gold. She felt taller somehow, not physically but internally, as if her spine had uncurled after years of bending. That night she packed lightly. Hiking shoes, sweater, a journal, and the newest version of her planner, not filled with tasks for others, but blank pages waiting for her own life. She placed Ariana's letter and Yvonne's note in the drawer, not to forget them, but to close the chapter properly. She didn't hate them. She didn't resent them. She simply wasn't carrying them anymore. She lay in bed, listening to the hum of the city outside her window. "I'm allowed to choose myself," she murmured. The words didn't feel rebellious anymore. They felt natural. The next morning, Jordan drove toward Mount Rainier, the city shrinking behind her in the rearview mirror. With every mile, her shoulders dropped an inch. The highway curved through forests dense with evergreens, mist rolling over the treetops like slow-moving clouds. She cracked her window, letting in the cold pine-scented air that filled her chest with something close to renewal. When she reached the cabin, a small wooden structure perched near a quiet lake, she stood for a long moment outside her car, listening. No sirens. No buzzing notifications. No voices calling her name with expectation. Just wind whispering through leaves and water rippling gently against the shore. Inside, the cabin smelled of cedar and old books. She set her bag down, made herself tea, and stepped out onto the deck overlooking the lake. Sunlight danced across the surface in broken flashes. Jordan sat in one of the wooden chairs, blanket around her shoulders, tea steaming in her hands. She let herself feel everything that rose to the surface. Hurt, anger, relief, triumph, grief. There was no one here to manage. No one to protect. She opened her journal and wrote without stopping, letting ink pour out truths she had never said aloud. "I was never their strong one. I was their available one. There's a difference." The words landed like liberation. She spent the rest of the evening walking along a narrow trail by the lake. Birds darted between branches. The sky turned shades of lavender and burnished orange. For a moment, Jordan felt suspended between who she had been and who she now had permission to be. She whispered into the trees. "I'm choosing me." The forest didn't echo it back. It didn't need to. Saying it aloud was enough. On the second morning, Jordan woke before sunrise. She wrapped herself in a soft blanket and stepped onto the deck as the first hint of dawn crept over the lake. Mist hovered low on the water, drifting like a quiet breath across the surface. She sat cross-legged, allowing stillness to settle into her bones. Her mind drifted, first to childhood memories, fragmented and blurry, then to adulthood, sharper but heavier. She remembered Ariana crying because she'd lost a bracelet, while Jordan spent the evening cooking dinner so Monica wouldn't get overwhelmed. She remembered holding responsibility like a second skin, wearing it even when it blistered. But what struck her now wasn't resentment. It was recognition. She had been loyal to dysfunction because she didn't know loyalty could look different. She didn't know loyalty could include herself. Mid-morning, Jordan took a canoe out onto the lake. The water stretched smooth and mirror-like, reflecting mountains that looked ancient and unmoving. As she paddled slowly, the world felt vast and intimate at once. She let the quiet seep into her thoughts, let it show her where she'd been living too small. At the center of the lake, she rested the paddle across her knees and closed her eyes. For the first time in her life, silence didn't mean suppression. It meant return. Return to self. Return to boundaries. Return to the version of Jordan who existed before she was molded into a family function. A breeze skimmed across the water, brushing her cheek like a soft hand. She whispered, "Thank you," unsure whether she meant it for the universe, for herself, or for the wilderness surrounding her. Maybe all three. She paddled back slowly, savoring each moment. Healing wasn't a moment, it was a direction. That evening, Jordan built a small fire in the cabin's stone fireplace. She sat on the floor with a blanket around her shoulders, watching flames dance in shades of amber and gold. With the crackling wood for company, she opened her planner. Her new planner, the one not filled with Ariana's deadlines or Monica's expectations. Only blank pages. Clean space. The first page held a single line she'd written before leaving Seattle. Start again, not smaller, but truer. She traced the words with her fingertip. They felt right. She pulled out Ariana's letter and Yvonne's note from her bag, setting them beside her. 2 apologies. 2 openings. 2 reminders that accountability can arrive unexpectedly. But Jordan understood something she hadn't before. Apology wasn't obligation. Forgiveness wasn't immediacy. And reconciliation wasn't guaranteed. She added a small note in the margin of her planner. Respond when you're ready. Not before. She looked into the fire again, feeling its warmth seep into her skin. She let herself imagine a future unanchored from constant caretaking. A future with boundaries. With trust. With relationships chosen, not assigned. She imagined friendships like the one forming with Brianna. She imagined future partnerships built on reciprocity. She imagined waking up without dread, moving through her day without scanning for emotional landmines. She imagined a life where she didn't have to perform stability to earn love. Tears slipped down her cheeks, not from sadness but from release. A quiet, private release that felt like exhaling after years of shallow breaths. She closed her planner gently. Healing didn't require permission. Rest didn't demand justification. Jordan whispered into the fire's glow, "I'm allowed to be whole." And for the first time she believed it. When Jordan returned to Seattle the next day, the city looked different. Not because it had changed, but because she had. Her apartment felt warmer when she walked in, sunlight stretching across the floor like an open welcome. She placed her bag down, brewed a fresh cup of coffee, and stood at the window overlooking the street below. For the first time, she didn't feel pulled in 10 different directions. She felt centered, grounded, present. She opened her laptop, not out of obligation, but to write the next chapter of her life. She began with a message to Ariana, short and honest. "I received your letter. I'm processing. I'll reach out when I'm ready." She didn't apologize for the delay. She didn't soften the boundary. She didn't shrink. Next, she wrote to her mentorship circle, confirming she'd attend the next meeting. Then she drafted a personal note to herself. 3 simple promises. Choose peace. Choose truth. Choose self. She placed her new planner beside the coffee mug and looked around her apartment, this time seeing not a space she occupied out of necessity, but a home she had built for herself. Jordan closed her eyes and breathed in deeply, feeling the weight of old expectations lift like fog burned away by sunlight. She wasn't broken. She wasn't harsh. She wasn't unstable. She was a woman who finally recognized her worth, and refused to let anyone redefine it. Before stepping away from the window, she whispered a final truth into her quiet, sunlit living room. Peace isn't something they give you. It's something you reclaim. And she smiled, not because everything was perfect but because everything was finally hers.